Have you ever looked at the world and wondered how? Can we be capable of both incredible kindness and unthinkable cruelty? One moment we see strangers helping each other in times of disaster, risking their own lives for people they've never met. And then we turn on the news and see stories of war, violence, and betrayal. It's confusing, isn't it? Thousands of years ago, philosophers began asking, are humans born good or evil? And somehow, even today, we're still searching for the answer. Not just in books or debates, but in our own quiet reflections. When we make mistakes, when we're hurt by someone, when we see injustice, we pause and ask ourselves, why are people like this? This isn't just an intellectual question, it's deeply personal. Because the way we answer it shapes how we see others and how we see ourselves. If we believe that people are born bad, we might always keep our guard up, expecting betrayal. If we believe that we're naturally good, we might feel devastated when someone disappoints us. So today, let's explore this question together, not to label anyone, but to better understand what it means to be human. Let's go back in time a bit, to ancient China. There were two great philosophers, Mencius, or MDNT, and Xunzi, or Tuanti. They both shaped how generations of people viewed human nature, but they couldn't have been more different in their views. MDNT believed that human nature is fundamentally good. He compared it to how water naturally flows downward. According to him, we're all born with a seed of goodness inside us, like compassion, empathy, and a sense of justice. He gave a simple but powerful example. Imagine walking down the street and seeing a child about to fall into a well. You don't need to think about it to just feel a rush of concern. That instinct, MDNT said, is proof that goodness is in us from the very beginning. But Tuanti didn't see it that way. To him, people are born with selfish desires, greed, jealousy, aggression, and those things left unchecked would lead to chaos. He believed we become good, not because it's natural, but because of education, discipline, and strong social rules. Without structure, he argued, we'd fall into disorder. Now, neither man was completely wrong. Maybe that's the point. Because their arguments still echo in modern psychology today. But before we get there, let's make a quick stop in Europe's 17th and 18th century, time of enlightenment, revolution, and more philosophers wrestling with the same question. Jean-Jacques Rousseau said something very close to MDNT. He believed people are born good, but it's society that corrupts us. In our natural state, he thought, we're peaceful, cooperative, and free. But then come property, competition, inequality, and those things distort us. His famous idea was, man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains. Chains, meaning the pressures and systems we live under. On the other hand, we have Thomas Hobbes, whose view was more like Tuanti's. Hobbes believed that without laws or control, people would fall into constant conflict. In his words, life without order would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. He argued that we need strong institutions to stop us from tearing each other apart. So even across cultures and centuries, we keep returning to this puzzle. Are we born good, only to be shaped by a bad world? Or are we born wild, only to be tamed by society? Now, let's zoom into the present, to what psychology and behavioral science have to say. One thing modern studies seem to agree on is this. We're born with potential, not as saints, not as villains, but with a complex mix of impulses. Babies show signs of empathy very early. When they hear another baby cry, they cry too. Toddlers sometimes offer toys to comfort others. These aren't learned behaviors, they're innate. At the same time, we also show selfishness early on. Kids fight over toys. They grab what they want. They lie to avoid punishment. And unless they're taught how to manage those impulses, they can grow into adults who act without regard. For others, so maybe human nature isn't one thing. Maybe we're a balance capable of deep love and deep harm. Or maybe the key isn't choosing one side, but recognizing both, deciding which one will feed. Think about how much environment matters. Take a child raised in a home full of fear, neglect, or violence. That child may learn to shut down emotionally, or to lash out. And yet, another child, raised with support and stability, may grow up generous and secure. Doesn't mean the first child was born bad. It means they weren't given what they needed to bring out their best self. And it's not just about childhood. Our surroundings keep influencing us. Even as adults, we act differently depending on the situation. If you're under pressure, feeling powerless, or in survival mode, you might make choices that go against your own values, which leads us to an uncomfortable but important truth. Good people can do bad things. It's easier to believe that evil belongs to other people, monsters, criminals, strangers. But history and psychology both show us that ordinary people, people like you and McCann, be pushed to act in ways we never thought possible, given the right or wrong circumstances. And that thought is both scary and humbling. We like to think we'd always do the right thing. But what if you were born in a time of war? What if you grew up believing that certain things, violence, hatred, were normal, even justified? What if survival meant doing harm? Would you be the same person? That question isn't meant to make us feel guilty. It's meant to make us compassionate toward others and toward ourselves. Because maybe the real question isn't, are we good or evil? Maybe the real question is, what are we choosing today? It's a strange thing, isn't it? It's realizing that goodness isn't always about who we are deep down, but about the choices we make, especially when it's hard to make them. Think about the last time you were truly exhausted, overwhelmed, or even hurt by someone. Did you react in a way that surprised you? Maybe you snapped at someone you care about, or you shut down and withdrew. In those moments, even the kindest people can act in ways that seem out of character. That's the thing about being human. We're not always operating from our highest self. Sometimes we act from fear, from anger, from pain we haven't dealt with yet. Modern psychology has given us new language for these patterns. We talk about trauma, emotional regulation, stress responses, but behind all that terminology is something very simple. The environment we're in matters. The stories we've lived through matter, and they shape the way we respond to the world. There was a famous psychological experiment back in the 1970s called the Stanford Prison Experiment. You might have heard of it. Volunteers were split into two groups, prisoners and guards. We're all regular people, college students, just participating in a study. But something shocking happened. The group assigned to play guards started to act cruelly, abusing the prisoners, even though they all knew it was just a simulation. The experiment had to be shut down early. It wasn't that these guards were bad people. It was the environment. Power dynamics, the roles, the lack of accountability that changed how they behaved. It makes you wonder, if we were in their shoes, would we have acted any differently? This isn't an excuse for bad behavior, but it is a reminder of how fragile goodness can be when we're under pressure or swept up in systems bigger than ourselves. And this brings us to something important, something we don't talk about enough: the difference between who we are and what we do sometimes. We're too quick to label people as good or bad based on one moment, one decision. But what if we held more space for complexity? What if we believed that someone could do a bad thing and still have goodness inside them? Or that someone who seems kind today could hurt others if they're not self-aware? There's a quiet strength in admitting that we're all capable of both light and shadow. It also means we have to stay awake, because our environment doesn't just influence us, it challenges us. Imagine growing up during war, not reading about it, but living it. Every day, survival is your only goal. Watch people die, learn to distrust others. You're told that the enemy deserves no mercy. In that world, being compassionate could get you killed. If you were born there, what choices would you make? It's an uncomfortable question, but it's one that helps us let go of moral superiority. It reminds us that being good isn't a permanent state, it's a daily practice, a choice we make again and again, often in small, invisible ways. We choose goodness when we speak kindly instead of judging, when we listen instead of trying to win the argument, when we own our mistakes and try to make them right. Yes, sometimes we fail, but the point isn't perfection. The point is trying, especially when it would be easier not to. It's easy to be good when everything's going well, but the real test is who we are when we're tired, when we're scared, when no one is watching. It's where character is formed. This is why compassion matters so much. Not just toward others, but toward ourselves. Because if we can admit that we've messed up and still believe we're worthy of change, that's the beginning of something powerful. It's the kind of self-awareness that keeps us grounded. So maybe instead of asking, is this person good or evil, we can start asking, what shaped them? What pain are they carrying? What choices are they making and why? Because when we get curious, we start to understand. And when we understand, we're more likely to respond with grace rather than judgment. And here's something that often surprises people. Even small shifts in environment can bring out a very different side of someone. Put a person in a community that values honesty, kindness, and mutual support, and they're more likely to rise to that standard. But place them in a toxic, competitive, fear-driven space, watch how quickly they start to adapt in order to survive. It's not about blaming the environment for everything, but it's about being aware. Because once we understand the forces acting on us, we gain the power to choose differently. One of the most hopeful things I've ever heard is this: every day, you get to decide who you are becoming. You're not locked into one version of yourself. You're not destined to be just like your past or your upbringing. You have choice. That means you can grow, you can repair. You can surprise even yourself with how much love and strength you can hold. And so can others. It's true sometimes. People disappoint us. They act selfishly. They cause harm. And that hurts. But if we believe that everyone is born evil, we might stop trying to reach them. We might give up too early. But if we believe people have the capacity to change, even if they've lost their way, that's when healing begins. That's when communities grow stronger. It's when peace becomes possible. Because at the heart of this question, good or evil is not just a philosophical puzzle. It's a call for empathy. It's a call to see the human beneath the behavior. To recognize that we're all in process. We're all learning. And some of us just haven't had the chance to feel safe enough to show our best selves yet. When we think about human nature, we often search for a clear answer. Are we born good? Are we born bad? But maybe the truth is more delicate than that. Maybe it's not black or white, but something in between. Complex, shifting dance between biology, environment, experience, and choice. Some people, like Mencius, believe that our hearts are naturally inclined toward compassion. That if we see a child in danger, we don't stop to reason, we just reach out to help. Others, like Xunzi, believed the opposite. That people are born with desires that, if left unchecked, lead to chaos and only through learning and discipline. Do we become moral? And then there's Rousseau, who said society corrupts us. And Hobbes, who believed without structure, humans would fall into violence. All of these thinkers were reaching for the same thing, to understand what makes us who we are. But perhaps they were all right. In their own way, because let's face it, there's a bit of a Mencius in each of us, part that feels naturally drawn to kindness, to nurturing, to helping someone in pain. And there's a bit of Xunzi to a voice that pulls toward selfishness when we're threatened or insecure. We are both, and every day, whether we realize it or not, we are choosing which part to feed. That choice is powerful, and it's also humbling. Because it reminds us that being a good person isn't something we're just born into. It's something we become through the life we live and the values we practice. Let's think about a simple, quiet example. Imagine you're standing in line at a grocery store. It's been a long day, you're tired, and the person ahead of you is fumbling with their wallet, clearly holding up the line. Now, at that moment, you have options. You could roll your eyes, you could let frustration take over, or you could breathe. You could choose patience. Maybe even offer a gentle smile. That's not a grand act of heroism, but it is a moment of choosing kindness over irritation. And those little moments, they add up. They shape your character. They shape how others feel around you. They create a ripple effect. We often underestimate the impact of those quiet daily choices. But there where the real work of being human happens, because life will keep throwing challenges at us. Difficult people, unfair circumstances, exhaustion, loss, conflict. And In each of those moments, we have to decide, will I react from fear or respond from love? Will I become harder or softer? Will I close or open? That's the deeper question, isn't it? Not am I good, but am I becoming good? There's beauty in knowing we're never finished. There's always another opportunity to show up with more honesty, more courage, more compassion. So where does this leave us? Maybe it leaves us with the understanding that good and evil aren't permanent labels, but possibilities. That we are not fixed in stone, and neither is anyone else. The neighbor you don't understand. The coworker who frustrates you. Even the part of yourself you struggle to forgive. We're all evolving, all trying. All shaped by what we've lived through. And what we choose to believe is still possible. And maybe, just maybe, the question we should be asking isn't what is human nature, but rather, what kind of human am I choosing to be today? Because that question puts the power back in our hands. We can't control the past. We can't control how we were raised or the things we've suffered, but we can decide how we move forward, how we treat others, what values we hold sacred, and how we show up, not only when it's easy, but when it's hard. So if you've ever doubted yourself, if you've ever looked at the world and wondered what the point of goodness even is, let this be your reminder. Your kindness matters. Your effort matters. And even if no one sees it, even if it goes unnoticed, it still shapes the world. You might not change everything, but you can change something. You can choose peace when there's tension. You can choose compassion when there's judgment. You can choose to try again when you fall short. And that effort to choose light in the midst of shadow is what makes us profoundly human. So what do you think? Is human nature good, evil, or something far more intricate? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments, your experiences, reflections. This is a conversation we can all grow from. And if this video gave you something to think about, consider liking it and subscribing for more deep dives into the questions that shape our lives. Together, let's keep exploring. Let's stay curious. Let's keep becoming the kind of people this world needs. Because every day, in 100 small ways, we are deciding who we are. And that is the most human thing of all.